So when you look at the harms, so we know that obviously the more it's dose related, the more a child is ostracised and treated badly, we know the harsher the effects on them socially and emotionally. Now some people say, well, how does this effect work? And we now have really good data around influence on neural development and also how it influences what's known as epigenetics, how it interferes with our gene interaction. So we're born with a bunch of genes, and you probably recognise, this your DNA, and everybody's got a set of things that will happen to you. Now, some of them express and some don't. We can go our entire life and carry a gene for schizophrenia, but if we're not interacting with something in the environment that enables that gene to express, we just carry it to our death. And some genes express really easily, and some take a lot more work. So when a child experiences lots of adversity, whether it be through the ways that they are treated by their parents, or maybe by their friends, or maybe by other adults, that is harmful, it damages the gene expression. And you can damage the gene expression for a long period of time now. We've only known this very recently, since the Human Genome Project has allowed us to have a deep understanding of what happens to our genes. So when you have a lot of adversity, a lot of difficult situations in your life, so it influences, it's an interaction with your genes. It also, these genes are expressed because of the other systems that are kicking in your body. Now, all of you will know that there are some really good drugs that we all have access to every day, depending on what we do. So dopamine is one of the best narcotics you can get to reduce pain. We get it naturally. It secretes from our brain. We have oxytocin, which is again a wonderful neurotransmitter that we get every time we hug somebody or spend time with people we love. That neurotransmitter, which greases the works, is released from our brain. Again, a fabulous narcotic. We also have two others, serotonin and endorphins. Anybody know when you get endorphins? Exercising, yes, yes. Some people say it's just because you feel good because it stopped, but in fact there is a secretion of hormones that happen. Now, all of those neurotransmitters, all of them, those four, I call it a dose: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Those four really enhance your immune function, enhance how your body operates, and obviously lifts your mood and the ways that you interact with others. So our goal, if we could tap into that and measure it each day, would be how do we create a school environment that allows that dose of neurotransmitters just to be kicking through kids' bodies all day? But how do we really enable them to feel welcomed? The hug drug, oxytocin. They come into the school, they feel like they belong, someone uses their name, says g'day, they've got their friends there, they're feeling supported. Huge benefit to their physical health, not just their mental and emotional health, and also reduces the likelihood of them having chronic diseases as an adult. And again, this research is only very, very new. In the last 10 years, we've started to see the impact of adversity on the incidence of chronic diseases. We have these really long longitudinal studies that run for 50, 70 years where we watch people's life patterns, and we've observed that when young people and adults get expressions of the not so good neurotransmitters, which would be, give me an example of something that's okay if you're being chased by a bear but you don't want it ripping through your blood all the time. Adrenaline, well done. And cortisol, of course, is another one that you don't want to have in your system. Of course you need it to get a response, but it's not designed to be sitting in your bloodstream all day. So when you have one of those really tough days, which in teaching there's a lot of them, and you can feel the tension, cortisol's there, you can feel your shallow breathing, you can feel the clamminess on your skin, your heart is racing a bit, you've got to get rid of that, you've got to get it out of your system. If ever there was an advocate for going for a walk after your day, when you feel that, you've got to walk it out, you've got to get it out of your system, because when it sits in your system, it causes inflammation. And it causes inflammation for children too, and the last thing we want in our body is inflammation, because it wears down our immune system and it does damage to whatever it's inflaming. So cortisol and adrenaline, good for it, but then we've got to get rid of them if we're holding them for longer, or we've got to establish environments where that doesn't exist. So if you were my classroom, and my students, by the way, I was a teacher, secondary teacher, so I know I don't get as much respect as primary school teachers. And worse still, maths was part of my teaching, so even less respect. But anyway, that said, if you were my class and I'm really keen for you to understand some piece of trigonometry that I think is really important but you could care less about, and I use mechanisms in my classroom where I am trying to engage with you. I'm talking to you at a level rather than talking down at you. I sit with you. I know your name. I don't create anxiety in my room by picking people out of the room. Tell me what this trig equation is. Immediately the cortisol goes up. Children getting an emotional response. An emotional response shuts down learning. So when children are emotional, they're not learning, and are negatively emotional. And if they're really high on positive emotion, really high, it can interfere with learning as well because they're distracted. But if you think about a learning environment and trying to get maximum impact for children, so we need to make a calm environment. Our environment, our classrooms need to be calm so children are ready to learn. They need to feel welcome and they need to feel connection with the teacher. So I've spent my time on duty learning the names of as many children as I can so that I can interact with them well, because I can use that credit in my classroom in the ways that I interrelate with the students that I'm engaging with. And I can also use it when they're getting emotional, so I can help pull them down faster and they'll trust me when they're coming out the other side that I'll help them and reconnect them in my room. But most importantly, if they are emotional, any fearful, angry, whatever that might be, it's occupying their prefrontal cortex, and we know that's not really well developed in children anyway. And now we've got it's the amygdala that's largely doing that. It's kind of coursing forward to get these emotional reactions. We need to shut it down as quickly as possible, because if you were driving home today from this session and thinking deeply about what went on, and you ran into the back of a car or someone ran into the back of you, I hope this doesn't happen, you will get an emotional response. Everybody will get it. How quickly you pull that in is how well you've trained your brain to do that. There are some people, and you've probably met them, who will have an emotional response for quite a long time before they can pull in a cognitive response. So what we need to be doing is helping children to calm their emotions, to enjoy being in this space, having these positive experiences so that they're able to think and to think clearly. So if they're sitting in the room frightened because they don't know where they're going to go at lunchtime because those kids are going to address that, they're not learning anything that we have in that environment. So creating a space that helps children to really dig into those neurotransmitters, that they get the right dose, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin and endorphins, and minimising the chance of them, or at least helping them to get rid of any build-up they might have of cortisol or adrenaline that they may be carrying to school from their home experience, is the most important thing we can do for their learning, and also to reduce the likelihood of them having any social problems in our world that's without bullying. So to reflect on your school for a moment, the sorts of things that you're doing, and I guess I've put this up, not to be provocative, and you don't have to share any of the numbers that I ask you to put into your head, but how close is your school to being one that doesn't have bullying? Now, I'm not being facetious, and when you hear this story, you're going to doubt how genuine I am. We obviously collect a lot of data in schools, and we went to a school in Perth quite a few years ago now, Erin, as you might recall, when you were leading the work. And at this school, the school said we really have very, very low levels of bullying, and we believe them. They had fantastic strategies in place. And we asked, would you mind, could we come in and talk to the kids about how those things are working so we could understand them better? And the children reported, when we asked them about the bullying, actually there's really high levels of bullying in the school. And so we, with the permission of the school, we then asked, could we talk to the kids about what that bullying looked like? And the bullying had become so subtle that the school, in fact, the teacher said to us later, we thought the girls had a lot of colds that year because of the way the girls were expressing this bullying. So, Erin, I'm going to bully you because you know I don't really mean it. So I won't bully anyone else in the room. But I'm now just looking at Erin for too long, and I'm just holding her great gaze. I'm not frowning or anything. I'm just holding her eyes. And she knows now, if she was at this school, because it's beautifully codified, that I've got her in my sights, metaphorically. And then I might do something like just rubbing my nose. I'm sorry, Erin. And, or walk past her and just maybe drop a tissue beside her. And all of this was code for, I don't like the way you're behaving. I think you fill your bras with tissues. It's up there. And make yourself bigger than what you are. So hence the tissue component of this behaviour. So it was so subtle. And the teachers had noticed the tissues on the floor. And that's why they thought there were a lot of colds, or the coughing or the nose rubbing that was associated with it. So we have to be really careful that bullying doesn't just morph and become more and more covert. my father grew up on a potato farm, and I think about this the same way that I think about the farm. The farm was a marsh, and we often had fires. It was around near Albany, and the fires would burn in the peat under the soil, so you couldn't see the fires. It was really dangerous if you went walking around and kind of stepped on the ashes. And in a way, that's what covert bullying is doing. You can't see any evidence of it on the surface, but it's burning really deeply underneath. And in fact, in one of our studies, the children said to us that it hurt way more to have somebody do something covertly, like leave them out of a group or threaten them subtly or take some of their belongings, than it did to physically hit them. And they said the main reason for that is that adults don't take any action. They say that we say things like, and I know I've said it in my teaching, don't worry, there's other people that you can play with. And then away I go to maybe help them connect with those people. But they say, when you say that, you demonstrate you don't get how important it is for me to have friends. So our actions and our reactions to covert bullying are really important, and the ways that we respond. So when you think about your school and you reflect on maybe what we call the whole school approach, so you've got classroom curriculum, you've got policies that address it, ways you engage with your families, way you set up your school culture, the climate or ethos that you have within your school, even your physical build of your school, which I'll show you in just a moment, can make a huge difference to whether or not children experience bullying or not. So just for the sake of this exercise, I'd like you to put a number in your head. So decide, and if you're out of schools, and I know there's a number of people who are, think about the last school you're in. I'm thinking about, Forestfield was the last school I was at, and I'm going to give that school at that time a score out of 10. It's really important that you have a number, so if you can, holding. At the time, I was giving my school a 6. And now I'd like you to reflect on, with that number, why did you give a score that high? So you're thinking about great stuff that your school was doing. What sorts of things did they have in place? Just reflect for a moment on why did you score it that high? What were things that you wouldn't get rid of? Not negotiable, they were making a difference to the way children get along. Maybe you had a great staff, maybe you had really clear actions when children were behaving badly. Now I'd like you to reflect on why you didn't give it a score higher. So what's missing? What actions, even small steps, do you think your past school or your current school could take just to improve? It's all about school improvement. It's not about judging whether it's good or bad. It's just wherever we are, there's small steps we can do to make it just slightly better.